Funny thing about noise, people crave it. The chaos, the chatter, the constant buzzing of a world that never shuts up. They fill every corner of their lives with distractions, scrolling, swiping, chasing, talking, because silence terrifies them. It's in the silence that the truth starts to echo. It's in the silence that their masks begin to crack. A silence, that eerie, empty, ringing quiet that most people can't stand. It itches, doesn't it? Makes your skin crawl. Because when it's silent, you hear things. Not the TV, not the phone, not the crowd, no. You start hearing your own heartbeat, your own breath, your own regrets crawling up the walls of your mind like shadows. That's the part they don't tell you. Silence isn't peaceful. It's confrontational. It drags every little demon out of its hiding place and forces you to sit in the same room with them. People say silence is golden, but to most, it's terrifying. That's why they drown it out with noise, scrolling, tapping, talking, anything but stillness. Because stillness reveals, and revelation, oh, that's uncomfortable, baby. But what if that silence wasn't a punishment? What if it was the calm before the divine storm? The quiet before the shift? What if silence was the only way the heavens could finally get a word in? Think about it. We pray, we scream, we beg, we cry out to the sky, and then we panic when all we get back is silence. But maybe, just maybe, that silence is the response. Maybe the divine doesn't yell, maybe it whispers, and maybe you can't hear it because you won't shut up. Everyone wants a sign, a miracle, a booming voice from above telling them what to do, but signs don't come in neon. They come in whispers. They come in pauses. They come in the silence between your thoughts. And the only way to catch them is to sit in the void long enough to hear them breathe. You see, when God wants to teach you something, He doesn't always send a preacher. Sometimes He sends silence. He removes the noise, the people, the distractions, the endless chatter that numbs your brain and keeps you from facing the real question. Who are you when there's no one watching? What do you believe when no one's feeding you lines? What are you hiding behind that laughter, behind that confidence, behind that mask you wear every time the world walks by? But silence, silence peels it all away. It strips the performance. It exposes the raw. It drags your soul into the spotlight and says, now let's talk. But most people can't take that, so they run. They grab onto anything that fills the void. Relationships, work, chaos, drama. The most popular drug. Keeps you distracted from your own soul while making you feel alive. But it's a trap, a loud, glittery, noisy trap. And when God starts removing distractions, people panic. Why is everyone leaving me? Why am I alone now? Why is nothing working? Because maybe, just maybe, heaven's tired of being the background noise in your circus. Maybe it's trying to clear the stage. Maybe it's calling for silence, not to punish you, but to prepare you to finally speak without the interference of your addictions and attachments. But oh, the human heart hates silence. It craves chaos even when it swears it wants peace. Because chaos is predictable, chaos is familiar, silence, that's a gamble. That's raw. That's the sound of transformation, and transformation never comes dressed in comfort. It comes in confusion, isolation, disconnection. And in that fragile, trembling space, something begins to shift. A deeper awareness, a sharper intuition, a divine clarity. But only if you sit still long enough to receive it. People pray for change, but they resist the silence that carries the blueprint for it. They want answers, but not the silence that contains them. They want miracles, but not the stillness that prepares them to recognize one when it knocks. They want divine intervention, but keep drowning it in playlists and podcasts. Heaven isn't loud. It's surgical. And surgery starts with silence. So the next time everything gets quiet, the next time your world slows down and the voices vanish and the distractions crumble like sand between your fingers, don't panic. Don't run. Don't rush to fill the space. Sit in it. Drown in it. Let it consume you, because something ancient, something holy, something powerful is trying to reach you, but it will never yell over your chaos. It waits in the hush, in the still, in the silence you've been avoiding all your life. Distractions. They come dressed in perfume and pretty promises. They wear smiles, send texts, play music, whisper comfort in your ear, and slowly rob you of your mind. You think you're in control, but you're just a puppet tangled in the strings of dopamine. Ding! A notification buzz, a message, scroll. Yes, a quick hit of relevance. A momentary illusion that you matter, that someone's watching, that you're not alone. But it's all noise, isn't it? Sweet, seductive, poisonous noise. And you eat it up like candy laced with arsenic because it feels good. And you'd rather feel good than feel free. But what happens when the noise dies down, when the distractions vanish one by one? You panic. You call it loss. You call it bad luck. You call it isolation. But maybe it's not chaos. Maybe it's divine surgery. Maybe it's the moment heaven decided to pull you out of your self-made circus and shove your face in the mirror. You wanted peace, right? You wanted clarity, didn't you? But peace doesn't come in playlists. Clarity doesn't hide in crowds. It's found in the void, the raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable silence of your own damn thoughts. And most people can't handle that, so they keep running to people, to substances, to screens, anything but themselves. And then, when God removes those distractions, it feels like punishment. You cry, you scream, why is everyone walking away from me? Why do I feel so alone? Because, darling, heaven got tired of competing with your chaos. Tired of speaking while your ears were glued to the noise. So it cleared the room, it dimmed the lights, it muted the world, so you'd finally listen, not with your ears, but with your soul. That ancient, forgotten part of you that actually knows the truth, but got buried beneath memes, messages, reels, and reruns. People say they want purpose, but they worship distractions. They light candles for clarity, but kneel before chaos. And when clarity finally comes wrapped in silence, they spit in its face. Because silence isn't entertaining. It's not dopamine friendly. It doesn't perform. It confronts. And in that confrontation, people come face to face with their demons, their trauma, their suppressed pain, their forgotten dreams, their hidden guilt, their real questions, the ones they keep shoving under the rug with every scroll, every binge, every I'm fine. But when God strips the stage and leaves you alone with the echo of your heartbeat, that's not abandonment, that's realignment, that's recalibration. That's the moment the divine grabs you by the collar and says, enough playing, sit down, listen. But you won't hear it if you keep begging for distractions to come back. You'll miss the message trying to carve its way into your spirit. You'll miss the miracle because you were too busy chasing noise that kept you numb. You want to know what kills dreams faster than failure? Distractions. You want to know what buries purpose deeper than fear? Distractions. Little things, tiny, glittery, innocent-looking thieves that steal your focus, hijack your discipline, and turn your destiny into background static. And you let them. You open the door, you smile at them, you give them a seat at the table, and wonder why nothing ever changes. Why your soul feels starved. Why your time evaporates like smoke. Because you keep feeding the wrong fire. And when that fire burns out, oh, then comes the panic, the withdrawal, the silence, the detox, and finally, the truth. You see, when the distractions are gone, you start seeing clearly. The fog lifts, the veil drops, the lies unravel, and what's left, you, raw, unfiltered, unmasked. You meet the version of you that's been screaming under all the noise. The one that remembers the calling, the one that still believes, the one that's been begging for a chance to breathe. But that version of you doesn't show up when the crowd is cheering. It shows up in solitude, in stillness, in the eerie silence that feels like death, but is actually resurrection. So when the divine pulls the plug on your distractions, don't fight it, don't mourn it, don't run back to your drug of choice. Sit in the silence, let it pierce, let it sting, let it cleanse. Because what's coming next doesn't require noise, it requires depth, it requires clarity. It requires a version of you that's no longer hijacked by chaos, but shaped in stillness, carved in solitude, forged in the fire of holy focus. They say timing is everything, but no one talks about divine timing. The kind of timing that laughs in the face of your schedules, your deadlines, your 5-year plans. Oh, you thought you had it all figured out, didn't you? You had a neat little roadmap, a polished blueprint for success, happiness, love, purpose, all wrapped up in a vision board and plastered with motivational quotes. But the moment the universe starts ripping it apart, tearing your plans limb from limb, you cry, you scream, why now? Why not earlier? Why me? Because you don't understand the game. You don't understand that some blessings have a lock, and only time, divine time, has the key. See, if you got everything you wanted when you wanted it, you'd destroy it. You'd fumble it, sabotage it, crush it under the weight of your own unprepared hands. You want the throne, but your mind's still in the gutter. You want the crown, but your character's cracked like glass. You want the blessing, but your spirit is still intoxicated by ego, by greed, by that desperate itch to prove something to people who don't even care. So no, it doesn't come when you want. It comes when you're ready. Not ready on the outside, no suits, smiles, social media filters. That's just theater. I'm talking about internal readiness. The kind that only silence, struggle, and sacred waiting can build. But you hate the waiting room, don't you? You hate the void, the in-answer, that gray zone where nothing makes sense. where doors don't open, people don't show up, prayers don't get answered, at least not the way you want. So you think something's broken. Maybe God forgot, maybe destiny missed your name, but maybe, just maybe, the blessing is already here, hiding, watching, waiting for you to evolve into the version of you that can actually carry it without turning it into a curse. Oh, but people don't like that idea. They want magic without metamorphosis. They want harvest without planting, glory without grinding, miracles without maturity. So they chase shortcuts, they force things, they rush fate, and what do they get? Counterfeits. Chaos dressed as opportunity. Lovers who drain, jobs that crush, fame that kills, money that burns holes in their soul. Because they couldn't wait. They couldn't sit in the stillness long enough for the real thing to arrive. But divine timing, it's ruthless. It doesn't care about your clock. It doesn't bend for your comfort. It doesn't apologize for being late, because it never is. It arrives precisely when your spirit is aligned, not when your ego is impatient. And the irony is, most people miss their moment because they're too busy cursing the wait. They confuse delay with denial. They think slow means no, but in reality, slow means sacred. Slow means shaped. Slow means tested, refined, restructured, rebuilt, until the vessel is ready to carry the weight of what's to come. And you can fight it. You can scream into the void, punch the air, throw tantrums like a child denied candy. Or you can learn. You can lean into the silence. You can ask yourself, what is this waiting shaping in me? What is this pause teaching me that the blessing never could? Because sometimes the blessing isn't in the thing you're waiting for, it's in who you become while waiting. The discipline you gain, the clarity you uncover, the illusions you shatter, the strength you never knew you had until you were stripped of distractions, stripped of applause, stripped of noise, and left with nothing but time and truth. And somewhere in that holy chaos, you start to hear whispers, not from the world, but from something deeper, something ancient, something real. It says, not yet. And for the first time, you don't resist. You nod, you trust. You realize that being hidden is not the same as being forgotten, that being delayed is not the same as being denied, that the silence isn't a punishment, it's preparation, that the void is not a grave, it's a womb, and what's growing in there isn't just a dream, it's a version of you that can finally hold the weight of that dream without letting it destroy you. People think when God removes people, opportunities, distractions, he's being cruel, cold, indifferent. But what if it's the kindest thing he's ever done for you? What if that job that slipped through your fingers, that person who vanished without a trace, that door that slammed in your face, it wasn't sabotage, it was surgery, a divine amputation, not to punish you, no, but to save you from something you didn't see, something you weren't ready to handle, something that looked like a blessing but was actually a slow death wrapped in shiny paper. See, people only love what they can see, what glitters, what claps for them, what validates their broken little egos. So when it disappears, they panic, they cling, they mourn, they think they've lost gold when all they've really lost is noise, background noise, distractions in disguise, parasites that sucked your time, your focus, your energy, dressed up as friendships, lovers, careers. But you couldn't see it. You were too busy playing pretend, calling poison purpose just because it smiled nice. And that's the funny thing about divine intervention. It never comes dressed in comfort. It comes as disruption, as confusion, as heartbreak. You think heaven would whisper softly, wouldn't you? Tell you gently what's wrong. But no. It rips, it tears, it shakes the table, because subtlety doesn't work on people who've made peace with their own dysfunction. You got so used to being distracted, you forgot what silence sounds like. You forgot what peace feels like. You forgot how to sit with your own soul without needing constant noise to fill the cracks. You think distractions are just minor annoyances? No, they're spiritual narcotics. They keep you numb. They keep you chasing dopamine hits instead of destiny. They keep you in rooms you've outgrown with people who don't pray for your growth, only your compliance. So when God starts removing them, oh, you better believe it's not random. It's a divine detox. It's heaven flipping the switch, saying you've had enough crumbs. Now let's make space for the feast. But space, space is scary, isn't it? Empty chairs, silent phones, no notifications, no applause, just you and your raw, unfiltered thoughts. That's when you start hearing the truth you've been dodging, that your worth was never in that relationship, that your purpose was never in that paycheck, that your calling was never tied to their approval, and suddenly the silence doesn't feel so cruel anymore. It starts to feel clean, pure, sacred, like a blank canvas after years of chaotic graffiti. But still, people resist it. They try to replace what God removed. They run back to the old distractions like addicts crawling toward their next fix. Why? Because chaos is familiar. Noise feels safer than stillness. Dysfunction feels more comfortable than healing. So they rebuild what God dismantled, reconnect what heaven cut off, reinvited what was divinely evicted. And then they wonder why everything starts falling apart again, why nothing feels aligned, why peace becomes a stranger. You see, you can't ascend while still chained to distractions. You can't hear divine instructions with demonic noise in your ear. You can't grow into your higher self while dragging dead weight in the form of people who were never meant to walk your full journey. And God knows that. That's why He removes what you're too afraid to let go of. That's why He cuts off the toxic, the shallow, the artificial, because you wouldn't. And you wouldn't because you've mistaken comfort for purpose, convenience for destiny, proximity for alignment. So the purge begins, quietly at first. A shift here, a missed call there, a vibe that feels off, an invitation you don't get, a door that won't budge. And if you're smart, if you've got even a sliver of spiritual awareness, you'll stop fighting it. You'll stop mourning what's leaving and start preparing for what's coming. Because when distractions leave, destiny speaks louder. When the noise fades, clarity moves in. And what once felt like a loss starts to feel like, but oh, the cost. The loneliness, the silence, the stillness. That's where most people give up. That's where they turn around, crawl back to the chaos, beg for their distractions to return, just so they don't have to face the emptiness. But what they don't realize is that the emptiness was never punishment. It was preparation, a sacred space for what truly matters to finally arrive. They think isolation is punishment. They think solitude is a prison cell, but what if it's the preparation room? What if silence isn't your enemy. It's the scalpel that slices away all the noise you were addicted to. You see, most people, they don't fear loneliness. They fear meeting themselves in the mirror of silence. They fear what starts echoing in their mind when there's no one left to validate their shallow identity. That's when the real monsters crawl out, not from under your bed, but from within your own head. And that's exactly why the divine removes distractions before delivering purpose. Because chaos and calling, they don't live in the same house. You can't walk a straight path with crooked voices in your ears. And oh, how they love the noise, the constant stimulation, the scrolling, the gossip, the parties, the fake friendships dressed in dopamine. But when the lights go off, when the claps stop, when the likes disappear, who are they then? Who are you when nobody is watching? That's the real test. That's the furnace. But no one teaches you that. They just say, stay busy. Keep moving. Grind harder. But what if the grind is the very thing grinding away your soul? People crave distractions because they're terrified of purpose, because purpose demands pain, purpose demands pruning, purpose demands silence. And silence, it's brutal. Because it doesn't flatter your ego, it confronts your wounds. It doesn't stroke your insecurities, it exposes them. Silence isn't soft, it's sharp. And that's why only the brave survive it. Only those who can sit in their own darkness long enough to see their true light emerge ever make it to the next level. The rest, they crawl back to chaos, wrap it in comfort, and call it life. The divine doesn't just want to bless you, it wants to prepare you not to sabotage the blessing. And preparation looks nothing like what you imagined. It looks like isolation. It looks like rejection. It looks like unanswered prayers. But underneath it all, it's construction. The foundation being poured in silence, far away from the applause you crave. Because when the spotlight hits, that's why most people fumble success. They got the stage before they got the strength. They got visibility without vision, influence without introspection. But solitude, that's where real warriors are forged. Not in crowds, not in cheers, not in claps, in quiet rooms, on lonely nights, in tear-soaked pillows and prayers no one hears. That's where you stop chasing affirmation and start anchoring in alignment. That's where you stop asking, why me, and start declaring, try me. Because when you've survived your own mind, the world can't touch you. When you've wrestled with your own demons, critics sound like background noise. But to get there, you've got to be stripped. You've got to be emptied. You've got to be crushed until nothing fake can survive in you anymore. But people resist the crushing. They think if it hurts, it must be wrong. No. Sometimes pain is the prerequisite to power. Sometimes the breakdown is the birthing room. Sometimes the unanswered prayer is the greatest protection. But you wouldn't know that if you're always surrounded by noise, by clowns masquerading as companions, by distractions disguised as destiny. That's why the divine removes them, not to hurt you, but to heal you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because where you're going, not everyone can follow, not every voice can echo, not every attachment can survive. So the silence comes, the doors close, the texts stop, the invitations vanish, and all you've got left is your heartbeat, your thoughts, and that whisper you've been avoiding your whole life, the whisper that says, it's time to evolve. Not just change, evolve. Because evolution requires death of the old you, the masked you, the people-pleasing you, the distracted you. Only then can the real version emerge. And that version doesn't beg for company. It doesn't seek permission. It doesn't fear silence. It becomes the storm that others seek shelter in. It becomes the fire that consumes mediocrity. It becomes the proof that divine silence wasn't abandonment. It was the greatest act of love disguised as loneliness. So you think silence is the punishment. You think the isolation is exile. You think when people walk away, it's rejection. Oh no, no, no. It's selection. But your little mind, so used to chaos and noise, thinks something's wrong when everything gets quiet. When the phones stop ringing, when the parties stop happening, when even your own shadow seems to be keeping its distance, suddenly you panic because you were never taught that silence is sacred. You were never taught that solitude is where the real story begins. You thought the noise was life, but it was just distraction dressed as entertainment. You see, when distractions are stripped away, when your calendar clears and the calls stop coming, something strange happens. You start hearing again, not the voices outside, but the voice inside. The one you've been ignoring, the one whispering secrets you've been too afraid to face. And that voice, it doesn't entertain you, it doesn't flatter you, it exposes you. It drags your masks into the light and says, let's talk about who you really are. That's when the real terror begins. Not because there's a demon in the room, but because the one inside your own skin finally starts to speak. You start to see who you became while you were too busy to notice. The compromises you made, the addictions you dressed in routine, the fake smiles you wore like armor, the people you kept just to avoid facing yourself. But now they're gone, poof, like smoke in the wind. And you think it's the devil's doing. Maybe you even think it's some kind of curse. But oh, what if it's the cure? What if those distractions, what if their absence is your deliverance? You thought distractions were harmless, funny little habits, harmless scrolling, silly conversations, just a few drinks, just some casual company, just temporary noise to fill the void. But the void was the doorway, and you sealed it shut with artificial stimulation. You can't hear God in a crowd screaming your name. You can't find peace when chaos is your comfort zone. But when it all falls silent, that's when heaven whispers. That's when purpose knocks. That's when the noise clears and the truth steps forward. Uninvited, unapologetic, unstoppable. But most people run from that moment. They scramble to fill the silence again. New friends, new habits, new obsessions. Because silence is too loud for people who have demons they refuse to face. So they trade destiny for distraction, purpose for popularity, soul for social approval. But not you, right? You want truth? Then prepare for silence. You want calling? Then prepare for discomfort. Because distractions are dressed as blessings, and many sell their soul for comfort wrapped in chaos. But the ones who rise, the ones who evolve, they know the difference. They let the noise go. They allow the silence to sting. They don't flinch when the phone stays silent. They don't beg when people walk away. They don't chase after noise to soothe the ache. No, they sit with it. They let the ache speak, and when it does, something in them breaks. And that's exactly what was supposed to happen. Because your next level isn't built on what's around you. It's built on what's within you. And you'll never access that power if you keep clinging to what distracts you from it. So when distractions vanish, don't panic. Pay attention. When people disappear, don't mourn. Observe. When it all goes silent, don't scream. Listen. Because heaven doesn't shout, it whispers. And you can't hear the whisper if your ears are filled with noise, if your soul is intoxicated by comfort, if your mind is addicted to stimulation. That's why the distractions are being removed. Not to leave you empty, but to make room. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. Not to take something from you, but to awaken what's already inside you. Because silence is the chisel. And you're the stone waiting to be carved into something divine, dangerous, and untouchably powerful.